All right, all right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Transportation and Logistics podcast powered by Atlanta Dispatch and Humblebee Enterprises. I am very excited to have our guest on stage, a very special guest, Nick Schrok of Valoroo. And before we begin, I just want to start by saying this. Back in the day, just like your typical millennial, I got all my cardio by playing basketball. I mean, hours on end. I loved it. I didn't, I wasn't that varsity dude, but I played a lot in the rec center. So I'll say it like that. But that eventually transitioned to me getting even more intense cardio sessions when I started playing racquetball. So racquetball was my number one in my 20s. And a few months ago, I got into running for exercise, which I never would have thought was going to be something for me. I never said I'd run for fun. But it is something that I ended up taking on a few months ago. And this morning, for the first time ever, I ran 3.1 miles nonstop, And for those who know, that's the distance of a 5K, 5 kilometer. And, I ended up getting my fastest time ever. And the only reason why I feel like this is worth mentioning now is because last month I participated in the ATL 5K, and I missed the goal that I set for myself, which it hurt. It hurt real bad, actually, and it kind of drove me to say, "All right, well, I'm committing myself to run farther and faster each and every single one of those exercise sessions to ensure that I was not only able to meet my future goals but exceed them." And I say those things for these two reasons. One, set goals. I mean, especially as business owners, the only way that you can measure something and get better is if you actually set the goal to measure. And just number two is Henry Ford said it best: whether you think you can or cannot, either way, you're right. And I love the idea and the concept of running because you got to defeat that little voice in your head that's telling you that you're tired every single time. So, that's just how I wanted to start this session off. But with that being said, what's up, Nick? I see that you're muted, brother. Go ahead and unmute yourself. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks so much for having me on. Looking forward
Oh
to it.
yeah, no doubt, man, no doubt. I did mention my back in my heyday, I was hooping, and then I moved to racquetball. Did you have any sports that you were partial to? Anything that you were drawn to specifically?
Well, yeah, you mentioned that. We just moved offices a couple weeks ago, and I was just exploring it, and I found a racquetball court. We don't have a gym, we don't have a basketball hoop, but we have a racquetball court here. So I might have to pick your brain a little bit on even I don't even know where to start to be to be honest, but it looks like a ton of fun. Um, and then, but yeah, for me, I've just ever since college, I've done a ton of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and it's what I'll be doing after this podcast. And but yeah, it helps me to stay in shape and keep up with some friends.
Oh wow, man, that's what's up. The martial arts, huh?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so
So
actually, go ahead.
yeah, it's just a lazy man's martial arts. It's less formal than kind of a karate dojo or something like that. It's usually just a bunch of friends hanging out, trying to get better.
No, I feel it, man. I love it. I love it. It teaches you a lot of discipline mentally and physically, I bet, though. And okay, well, cool. So, look, I like to start these sessions off by asking, because you service the supply chain, did you go to college with that in mind that you were going to be in supply chain, or and if not, how'd you get into it?
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't. I knew I really just was honestly. I just wanted to be in business, right? So just working with people, trying to help businesses make money. I kind of fell into sales pretty early on, and I was selling enterprise software into convention centers before my wife got a job in San Diego. And as anybody, if you're a decent salesman, there's usually a job for you. So I just quit, moved to San Diego, and started applying, and just happened to apply to a logistics brokerage, and that was my really introduction into freight. And I wish they would have told me that once you're in freight, you can't leave, and this is what you're going to be doing for forever. But so yeah, that's what I was originally, just booking loads, moving freight, kind of end to end brokerage. But from there, I slowly built out some outsourced teams. started our we were just trying to we were a startup brokerage and we're trying to scale 10x every year without having to scale our payroll 10x. So that's where we look to leverage outsourcing, and I was kind of asked to build those teams.
Oh, nice, nice. I bet that right there is a skill set that you're just happy that you actually had a reason to build. I can only imagine how it's taking you in your career after you got them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a pretty looking back, it's when I tell people what I do, they're like, "How did you get into that? Building offshore teams in the Philippines for logistics companies." And I ask, it's kind of just dumb luck that you fell into it, meet some incredibly talented people in the Philippines, and it's kind of been off to the races ever since. But yeah, it's the definitely the best piece of my career is kind of taking that job, working with them, learning from them, and them just giving me this opportunity to build those teams and scale our sales program and then our operations.
Right, right. At what point in your, development did you say, you know what, I'm on to something here. I really enjoy doing it for this entity that put this into my, my understanding, but now I think I need to, do this on my own. At what point do you feel like you had that click?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think like most entrepreneurs and business owners, you always have the idea in mind. It's like, hey, I want to do my own thing. I want to own all the mistakes. I want to push the direction of the company I'm working for and own. So, and then, but eventually you kind of look back and you realize it's like, hey, I fell into this really unique niche. Maybe this is the spot. Maybe I should do this type of thing for other logistics companies. Initially, my father works in like the food brokerage business, right, representing manufacturers selling into grocery stores. So my first ideas were like, hey, let's start an acai company. Let's start some type of food and do that. But after building the relationships in the Philippines, and we had so much success, we were 10xing year over year. And when I talked to some counterparts for other logistics companies, they just weren't having that same success. So that's when we just started to sell the house, sell the car, really just dive into it.
Oh, nice, man. I love to hear it. And, I do think that is a, very similar story amongst entrepreneurs is you find something and you're just like, well, I think that this is it. I'm going to go all in. So I love to hear it. All right. So did I say the name of the company correct? I want you to pronounce it just so everybody can hear. And then can you lead into that you guys provide to these six organizations?
Yeah, the name's Valoroo. So just kind of like just how you say kangaroo, but Valoroo. And then, so yeah, what we support specifically logistics companies, right? Whether it mainly 3PLs and asset based, but we also work a little bit in the freight forwarding space. And most commonly, it's the roles that are kind of redundant and repetitive. So think track and trace, carrier sales, ARAP, and these type of things. When we kind of look at the logistics market as a whole, we really just have a labor problem, right? It's really hard to hire. Almost every 3PL owner I talk to, they're like, yeah, I just can't find good people to work, can't find people to do these third shift dispatch roles, all these different type of functions. And I don't think it's that people don't want to work anymore. I think it's that people want their work to drive value within the business, right? They'd rather be getting more business from customers, building strategy. They don't want to call a driver, tell him to turn on his tracking, or or enter data into a TMS. What I'm sure most employees and what I like and what other leaders things. So that's what we try to do. We try to take away these kind of anything you can build a standard operating procedure on. We like to take that over at a really high quality fashion and let those local employees drive that value and build that strategy.
Oh, okay. No, I love it, man. Because again, as a small business owner, I was one of those people who got stuck in the mundane of doing, the very very small task, and that took up a large majority of my day. And it wasn't that I didn't value what needed to be done. It was just, again, like you said, I wanted to be more on the business development. I wanted to work on the business, come up with the strategy. How are we going to do these things? But my time was needed elsewhere until I was able to, get some individuals to take on some of those tasks. So I definitely understand exactly what you're saying. And, maybe you're pulling on some heartstrings of some other folks as well. Um, you know, you you started this company, and at one point you were so brand new that you really had to sell this. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
What were, if you can recall, because this is a very specific question,
Uh-huh.
um, what were some of the barriers that your customers had to get over in order for you to be able to sell them this service? Like, what were some of the things that they kept getting hung up on that you had to overcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm thinking back to kind of our first few customers and kind of what we dealt with. And I'd say the first one, luckily, and I'm in San Diego. So our first one was in Long Beach, which is only about an hour and a half drive from me. And so we reached out to them on LinkedIn, and they're just like, yeah, you guys are so new. It's like we don't really know if you guys have the financial backing or what's the right way to solve this. And then what I was like, hey, you know what? Let me just come up. I'll sit with your team. I'll kind of explain it, and being able to kind of get that one-on-one and just proving to them that I had the abilities to make this work, and me as the owner was willing to put in the effort, and really just owning that we were small, not trying to be something that we weren't. It's like, no, this is small. We're just getting started. I'm going to give you all of my time and all of my effort to make this work. And kind of looking back from that one customer, they were also a startup. And unfortunately, they ran out of money, right? And they closed. But now we have three other customers from employees that used to work there. One, the same person that onboarded us, he went to another logistics company, brought us on there. And then two of their operational folks, they went on to start their own. One's a carrier, another 3PL, and they hired us there. So just putting in tons of effort early was really a driving factor for us. And then beyond that, another one was just legal, trying to understand how to write and negotiate contracts, which is just something you don't really think about as an employee, but you have to be really versed as an owner. So,
True, 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 true. I think those are all great points. You do have to start somewhere, and it is about getting that initial buy-in. I feel like most, people like to use that word self-made, but even somebody had to vouch for you at some point, and
mhm.
you can only just pray that when you are put in that light, that you shine so that people can vouch in your favor. But that's awesome, man. I love those origin stories. But it's funny though, because you know in logistics these days, especially working for a brokerage or any of these things, there are non-competes galore. Everything is a non-compete. Was it so early in your time, and the what you were doing with that organization, that it was just different? I just thought about that question, but I was just thinking, would a non compete have come into play, or was it just not so much? Like, maybe they just didn't think about it.
Well, two things. The CEO of the company I was working with is a mentor of mine. He was very supportive of me leaving to start my own business.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So yeah, and we weren't. They're a 3PL, right? A tech based 3PL, and so there's no real direct competition. We're staffing. We're selling into 3PLs.
Okay.
But even if they wanted to, that's a say what you will about California, but there's and non competes don't exist here. They just don't hold up in court.
Mm,
So, like, if I could. you could have people sign whatever you want, but they can't keep you from working somewhere else or going after customers.
You're right. That's why TQL doesn't have any offices there. Okay.
Yeah,
Good
that
point. I
makes
didn't even think
sense.
about that. Man, good connection right there. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, cool. All right. So let's just move along with how many employees or staff members have you been able to build up, since you guys started? When did you start again?
So we started late 2019. So we're about 3.5 years old, and we have around 200 agents now.
Okay. Nice, nice. 200 agents and everybody's remote, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we do have an office in San Diego, but I'm the only one here right now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
4 o'clock. Most people are working from home, but we come together a couple days a week just to brainstorm and things like that. But yeah, in the Philippines, everyone's remote based.
Okay. Well, cool. No, I love that. And, you do hear a lot about outsourcing and virtual assistants and all these individuals that are used that are not based out of the United States that are doing work. They're based out of the Philippines. Why did you choose the Philippines? And, if you were given a crystal ball to do this bad boy all over again, would you base it out of the Philippines a second time?
Yes, I would. Right. I think I got lucky because initially, when I chose the Philippines, it was just based on my connections that I already had to the country.
Mm-hmm.
But as we've grown, we've looked at other countries to diversify into. Right. It's like you never know what. Right now, the Philippines and the U.S. has an amazing relationship, and there's no real geopolitical threat to that country. But you never know how things change. There was a ton of outsourcing in Ukraine,
Correct.
and look what happened there. We've gotten so many calls over the last year of kind of emergency support for because their whole teams went down. So we have looked to diversify. And as diving into which countries you want to go to, the number one and two things I look at is number one is the English. How many people are in the country, and then what percentage of them speak English? And you really drive that into how large is the workforce you're pooling from. Because if it's only 1,000 people that you can eligible to hire, there's going to be a heavy competition to source those candidates. And then also look at education level. Is this and infrastructure? How are they college educated? What's the experience level? All of these type of things that I'm sure you and all your listeners look at. It's like, hey, what's the quality of work I'm hiring? So, and when you look at the Philippines, one, there's over 100 million people, right, that live on the island, and 60% of them speak English, right? Not to mention that, but it's a U.S. accent based English. They were a US territory up until the 1940s, which just really means they are used to hearing American accents. That's how they're learning English is based in America compared to a lot of other countries that were colonized by Britain. So it's to American ears, that's almost an accent on top of an accent. So, yeah, we would absolutely go to the Philippines again, even over countries that are closer, like Mexico, South America. Just the English proficiency isn't nearly as high as the Philippines, which honestly pretty shocking to me right when I first started looking into it.
Right, right, right. No, those are all really good, reasons to have your hub out of the Philippines. And I can really attest to a lot of the things that you said about, even my experience of being an expat in Dubai and Afghanistan. I met some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life, and they just happened to be from the Philippines and were the subject matter experts on a lot of the things that we were doing on the contracts that I was working on. So yeah,
Mhm.
perfect English. A lot of karaoke, a lot of
That's
karaoke.
true. A lot of karaoke. A lot of
But
karaoke.
yeah, no, but I love it. Which what are the fees associated with something like this? Are there startup fees, equipment fees, any other type of fees that people that are possibly interested in utilizing your services should know upfront?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't. I know it varies company to company. If you guys are looking at outsourcing, I would just get a couple of quotes and make sure you get an all-in quote. So, but for us, we've really simplified it where we have one flat rate for a full-time person. We don't deal in part-time work. We want to train someone for 40 hours a week to work exclusively for one 3PL or one asset-based company to support them. But no, we don't charge any onboarding fees. We provide all of the hardware, dual monitors, headsets, keyboards, PCs, all of that, internet access, and yeah, there's just no fees besides that, just monthly rate for a full time person. But some other things that are included in that is like when we onboard, for example, we call it 2-for-1 hiring. So for the first 60 days, let's say someone needs 2 track and trace reps, we're actually going to give them 4, and 2 of those reps are going to be unbilled for the first 60 days. So that way, at the end, you can pick, hey, who's buying into our culture, who's doing the best job, et cetera, and you just take the best of the best.
Okay. So what is that one flat fee? Or is it going to change, or can you say here?
Yeah, so I'm always happy to. I don't think we should give that out because it doesn't vary person to person, but we don't really advertise it out loud.
Okay.
But if anyone's interested, happy to give that to them on the. It'd be the first question I'm happy to answer, but we don't advertise our rates.
Okay. Cool. 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 I mean, well, I was just gonna, I know your rate, and I know it's competitive, so I was gonna be like,
Right.
okay, you're about to get some business. So,
Right. Yeah, and I would say that's a good thing to say. I mean, I always hate the thing. It's like our when you see job postings and they don't have a salary listed and it says competitive. It's like, well, if it's competitive, just tell me what it is, right?
right, right.
But yeah, I would say we've never in the last 3 dozen calls I've had, when we tell people our cost, everybody goes, okay, this is something I should consider. This is a third of what it cost me to hire in the States and competitive with any other outsourcing company you guys are considering.
Right, right. No, I agree, man. I agree. Well, look, this kind of like makes me think of like, so you have 200 or so agents. Are they all staffed, or are some of them hanging out waiting to get staffed?
So we do have, it does vary. I'd say the 90 something percent is staffed and already allocated to accounts. But whenever we come across someone with, let's say they've worked at a 3PL for 8 years doing carrier sales, and they come across our recruiting desk, we're just going to hire that person. They're fantastic. That's pretty rare to have that level of English, this very specific to logistics industry, and so then we just save them and just put them through our internal training until a client wants to scoop them up and take them part of their team. With that being said, I probably have 7 people in that ballpark right now, and but they'll be gone by the end of November, right? So they don't last very long. So I don't want to promise something that I can't perform. But right now, yeah, I do have quite a bit of people with logistic experience that have been in the workforce for probably 8 to 10 years who are just kind of rock stars that we're just hanging on to, waiting for the next client to come on board.
Nice, nice. I love it. And you kind of mentioned something that made me think of my time when I was working as a consultant. When I was with Deloitte, they had this thing that if you weren't staffed, you were technically on the beach, air quotes. And while you're on the beach, you have the ability to get various trainings to sharpen yourself. And you said that these folks get to go through your internal trainings. What type of things are you guys honing in on, or teaching them, or what type of stuff can they learn from you once they get onboarded with you?
Yeah, and then we obviously have our general freight training, right, which is just kind of the how-to of logistics. But outside of that, we gear it to kind of complement whatever they have. Let's say they worked for one of the less than truckload carriers for their whole career. It's like, well, you should probably know full truckload as well. So we'll pair them up with some current carrier sales reps, track and trace that are working on over the road freight so they can shadow that type of work. We'll put them into some transportation management system portals to work on that type of stuff, and really just try to give them a more general base of knowledge. So when they do start with a client, they're kind of off to the races and not having to learn the 101 of whatever industry that specific 3PL or carrier focuses on.
Right. Okay. Okay. And if somebody, if somebody listening, or we can talk about a past customer, what does the implementation process look like? They've heard your pitch and they're like, I definitely have the business need. What's up? What's that implementation look like?
Yeah, great question. And I honestly think this is some of the best, the strongest point of Valoroo and the most value we drive is during our implementation. Because if an employee or an outsourced agent, if they get started off on the right foot, they know what they're doing. Once they understand the job and you have the right person, it's much easier to manage them just because they're hitting their KPIs, they're doing a good job. So we very much overinvest in that first 60 days. So we talked about kind of early on that 2-for-1 hiring. So we're double staffed on what we're kind of looking for and required. On top of that, we have a manager that's going to be going through the training, that's done this job before, that is kind of coaching them through on improvement. Our management ratio, we target a 10-to-1. We're at an 8-to-1 right now, so we're overstaffed on the management side. And then we also, which is my favorite part, is most 3PLs and asset-based companies, they don't have everything written out in a standard operating procedure or an SOP process, right? Nothing's on paper. When I go, hey, how do I issue a TONU? They go, hey, sit with Jeff. He'll show you how to do it. Or sit with April. They'll show you how to do it. And when we initially train the team, that's what we do. We do sit with them, they show us how, but we record all of those trainings. We take them back in the evening and we write out the step by step guide on how to do it. And with screenshots, videos, timestamps, and we really create an entire training playbook for our clients completely free of charge. So that way, in the future, their employees can use it as we expand our new outsourcing, so they don't have to keep training us over and over and over again. And yeah, it's a lot of work on the beginning, and it's uh, just to be transparent, it's very cost intensive for us. But we're confident if we start out on the right foot and we provide a really good service, we'll grow with our partners and have a strong relationship.
Right, right. No, I love it, brother. I definitely love it. And we mentioned earlier, non-competes and contracts, and security is a huge thing for many companies, especially those with a lot of intellectual property. Um, I mean, are there any controls in place to bring peace of mind to those companies who might feel there is a security threat if they're going to outsource a workflow or ad hoc task? Like, what type of protocols, if any, are in place?
Gotcha. Good question. Yeah, in contract, we have um, month-to-month contracts. The first 60 days are also guaranteed. So if you try us out and it doesn't work for whatever reason, we'll just refund all of your cost up to that point. But then in terms of like cybersecurity risk, right? Um, One, we keep everything in your systems. We're not pulling data out of your systems, working on it, and then putting it back in. But beyond that, we have quite the big brother system, if I'm being honest with you, on all of our agents' PCs, where we're tracking keystrokes, mouse strokes, what applications and websites agents are on. We take random screenshots every few minutes. And all of our clients have access to this software as well. So if anyone was trying to do anything malicious, we would catch it very quickly. We've in the 3.5 years, we've had no red flags and no incidences, and I don't anticipate us ever having anything like that.
I love it, man. And I love the fact that you're allowing your customers to also have access to that so that, just in case they needed some peace of mind, they do have access to, the big brother system.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
look, so it's kind of this question, right? I'm thinking about it even from the perspective of someone who's building a company in your town, and everybody is working in the same office building. Instilling a company culture that embodies hard work and going beyond on the customer service side of things. It's challenging. So for you guys to build that company culture when everybody is remote, like what are the things that you're doing, and how are you able to curate a company culture that embodies those things that you do value? And I guess when you're answering that, you can tell me what those those values are.
Yeah, and that's a great question because one, remote work by itself is hard, but luckily, and again, I say luckily because I'd like to say I designed this, but um, you got to think our first full year was in 2020. So we really grew up in the COVID era. So having to build remote work and design all our processes around it, we got very, very good at it, right? And even if Philippines prioritized in-office work, I don't think we would go there just because of how strong and strategic our teams have become. So and but to your point, tactically, I don't think we've really reinvented the wheel. I think it's valuing people that are doing great work. Just individually, when someone does a great job, actually tell them they're doing a great job. Give them small bonuses when they have small achievements. Thank whole teams with coffee parties, pizza parties, these type of things. Really, just appreciating people that are the rock stars of your team. And beyond that is just also empowering your managers to have our leading leadership principle is extreme ownership through a book from Jocko Willink. I'm a huge fan, and we always go. It's like our managers are never allowed to come to me or the VP of operations and say their team's failing because their reps aren't any good, right? They always have to tell us, hey, this isn't working because I didn't give the reps enough training, or they have to take ownership of the problem. But when that comes down to the agent level, if you know it's in the company's culture and values that a coworker and a manager will never blame you for something going wrong. They'll individually take ownership because their boss won't accept anything but. It really breeds a culture of trust and understanding. And getting into your other question, like what are our values? Our number one value is people first. Anytime we make any decision, we always run it through the lens of, hey, how will this impact the agents, the reps? How will this impact the managers? And yeah, and we just make decisions on that. And then number two is honestly, I need to think of a more catchy way to say this, but internally, I just say we don't lose clients. We just don't. We will do whatever it takes, both financially and effort wise, to perform and execute for our partners and 3PL assets.
Well, I love it, man. I love it. And hey, for the people who are listening in and they've been won over, and they want to reach out to you and learn more and see how they can move forward. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you or your team?
Yeah, I would say feel free to reach out to me directly, right? Like if you want to go through our website and put in the contact information at valoroo.com, VALOROO.com, that's perfectly fine. And one of our sales reps will reach out to you. But honestly, I'd love to talk to your listeners as well and kind of pick their brain on how I could do a better job articulating what we do. So if you want to reach out to me directly, my email is Nick, at VALOROO.com, or my direct cell phone is 618-719-6698. And call me anytime. Happy to talk.
Well, boom, boom, boom. All right, brother. Well, look, that was everything I had. Did you want to? Was there something that you felt like you wanted to mention about your company that we didn't get an opportunity to speak about, or did you want to part, with any last words to the audience?
No, no, this has been a ton of fun, and I'm happy to give a company overview. And yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, well, bet, man. Well, I truly appreciate you for joining me here. For everybody that has tuned in every week for the last 2 years, I truly appreciate you all. I mean, we've grown this thing to nearly 30,000 members, and I don't think it doesn't seem to be slowing down. I mean, it's just still growing, and people are utilizing the community the exact way that I was hoping that they would. So, thank you all to the ones that are, pushing this boy forward. Next week, tune in Monday, as always. We're going to have FreightWave Sonar team to let you know where you should be sending your trucks to take advantage of the markets. As well as next week, Wednesday, we're going to be talking to a company that is offering compliance services with a twist. So, yeah, just tune in next week. And Nick, I appreciate you, brother. If there's anything I can do to help, just holla at me. But everybody else, be blessed and have a strong conclusion to your week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.